Hello. It's time for Matt's Reading Corner again. I have read another self-help book, which is definitely unusual for me. Doubly unusual for me is reading a book twice. I finished this, flipped the front cover, and read it all the way through again and underlined the second time around. And if you can see, I mean, flip to any page and there's something that I've taken the pen to. I mean, this is just a really dense with information book that I really liked and that I endorse and I think is certainly worth spending $2 on at a Goodwill, which is what I did. So why is this a good book? Well, let's start with why it's not a perfect book. We'll start with the negative and then talk about what I actually liked about it and what I got out of it. What I don't like about it, it's written by these two guys, Brian Franklin and Michael Ellsberg. It was written in 2016 and it has a strong Silicon Valley flavor to it, sometimes overpowering. There are multiple parts of this book that just make me cringe. There's a part where they recount in fawning tones about, where they recount an anecdote about watching one of the Google co-founders doing yoga at Burning Man and how this was a formative experience for them. A lot of stuff like that, this kind of limp dick Silicon Valley utopianism. There's a lot of weird lapses into almost cult language. They talk about this, these intangible, infinite values like love and understanding and stuff, and it definitely verges into woo territory and it steps over the line a little bit, at least for me. I have a lower tolerance for that stuff than a lot of people, especially in terms of these books, but all of that taken under advisement, I still think it's a wonderful book. And here's the basic premise. The point is they look at what they call, I don't remember, they use acronyms too, which is another thing that I don't particularly care for. These books tend to buttress their authority by inventing language, weird words, or weird anecdotes, or schemas for looking at the world and talking about the world that are overly simplistic and fit into really neat categories. And this suffers from that a little bit. Anyway, their point is the typical received wisdom about how to invest for your future is flawed, and it's flawed in a way that's been borne out through evidence, anecdotally and otherwise, to the point where it's safe to abandon that advice and that received wisdom in place of what they propose as an alternative view of how to invest your time, money, and energy to make your future a non-bleak one. What they're talking about in terms of what doesn't work anymore is this idea of going to college out of high school, spending your 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s working, earning as much money as possible and saving as much money as possible, scrimping and saving, living as modest a life with as low of expenditures as possible, and investing in these financial instruments that will allegedly utilize compounding interest to eventually render you into a millionaire. Their point is that clearly something is very askew with this system, since it is what everybody has been operating on for a few decades now, and we appear to not be surrounded by millionaires. Clearly, college is a broken system, or largely broken. It doesn't pay out in the way that it promises. This is a conversation we've all had a million times. And also, investing in stuff like the stock market, mutual funds, these allegedly safe investments, real estate, obviously. Either you are rolling bigger dice than you think you are and the market can crash and you can lose money, or it pays out at rates that are only marginally above inflation. And I am not an expert at this. I am a financial moron, so I'm taking their word on this one, but that strikes my intuition as correct. What they propose instead is a little bit of a bit. Let me see if I can find the, yeah. So here's their diagram of their system. It's called the SAFE, SAFE system, and this is, you know, a lot of moving parts. Basically, what they claim is a better way to use your money is to spend it proactively in ways that will pay off either in your immediate future or will make you more financially and socially secure over the long haul by allowing you, one, to be smarter with your money, to know yourself better, and know the ways in which your spending habits influence you and your mood, and coming to terms with what motivates your spending habits so that you can save money, and also working on yourself and investing in yourself to make you more valuable to others, to improve your ability to add value. That's the favorite phrase. Not in this book necessarily, but that's something that you hear a lot. How do you invest in yourself in such a way that allows you to add value to people, and how you predict what those investments are? And they claim that there is a set of what they call super skills. There is a certain finite number of talents, abilities, skills that are learnable, that are universally valuable on the job market or in interpersonal relationships. That there are buttons that you can press that will exponentially accelerate your ability to make money and to be employable, and that will yield greater and greater returns over time the more of those skills you learn and invest in. I'm not 100% sold on this premise, but again, that sounds about right. So they have a table of what those super skills are. And some of it is filler, some of it is not. There are a few chapters, they go skill by skill in great detail. That's the meat of this book. And they give kind of a nutshell of the basics of how to attain competency in that skill, what it looks like. Some of it is fascinating. Some of it's obvious. They tell you to take improv and public speaking classes, etc. Some of it is not as obvious. They have a breakdown of what leadership is, why it's considered, at least in the context of this book, the most employable, highest yield skill that you can have, the ability to influence people. And they portray it as a highly, highly advanced acute form of empathy, which is interesting. There's other ones like, I didn't review my highlighting before doing this video. Stuff that was personally relevant, like copywriting, is something that I think would be a good investment. I don't know if I can or will resell forever. Probably not. There's probably another horizon. I don't ever want to do wage work ever again if I can help it, which is a whole other video. It's just, I feel, not to sound arrogant, I feel that it is below my dignity at this point, and it is below, in fact, everybody's dignity to work for a wage. But if I could land a high salary job that I cared about and gave me a sense of autonomy and control over my own life in the way that reselling does, I could see that being a potential option. Copywriting fits right in line with my personal skills. Other stuff. There is a fascinating chapter about what they call systems thinking and mental modeling. So the idea is, even if you're not someone who is highly technically fluent, but you work with highly technical people, how can you interface with them, and how can you go from a place of total ignorance to having a functional vocabulary to communicate with these people and to work on those projects? Like if you had to complete an engineering project with engineers and you had no engineer experience, they lay out a way that you can build a functioning mental model of what it is the particular task at hand is, and how you can apply your own agency to it. and on and on. It's more complicated than that, obviously. Most of it is very interesting. Most of it is not necessarily intuitive. Some of it is. Some of it is, there's not a lot of surprises. But some of it isn't. I feel like I learned a lot reading this book twice. And another important point that they make is your net profit over the course of your career is not as important as your feeling of security. That what you're actually after, if you set a financial goal for yourself of I want to make 6 figures a year, or whatever your goal is, the point isn't the actual number. The point is what will be your emotional state when you attain that, and what does that actually symbolically represent to you? It probably represents what I said, and what they say is a sense of security and control and not living in fear. And they claim that the way to attain that is by proactively cultivating a broad network of casual and professional and personal and romantic relationships with people. This is, by the way, the only self-help book I've ever read that has a whole chapter on how getting laid is important for your sense of wellness and well-being and success in life. For that alone, I co-sign this book. I've never heard that from anybody else, but we all know that it's extremely true, extraordinarily true. Anyway, they have another chapter on what they call tribe. And this is where we get into the more prickly part of the bramble bush with this book. They are members of this formalized network of acquaintanceship and friendship where they live in the Bay Area that consists of, I think it was around 30 people who are deeply involved with each other's lives. It really truly does sound like a cult. Their point is they belong to this network of supportive relationships, the premise upon being a network of supportive relationships, to have solidarity mutually, to diminish risk to any individual member. Basically this form of communalism that I'm not opposed to. It just is slightly a little bit creepy. But the point behind that, I think, is very valid, and it is perfectly in line with the last book that I did a review on, Never Eat Alone, which says the same thing, that it's really personally important to your health, safety, and success to have a network of people that care about you and whom you care about. And they say the same thing. So, all in all, the book is actually better than I'm rendering it verbally. There are some holes that you can step in, but they're not deep enough to break your ankle. And overall, I was just really taken, really impressed with this book. I think that it was written with the reader's best interests in mind, and I think that a lot of thought went into it and a lot of wisdom. And despite all of the things that I've said that I have misgivings about, this is one of the only books of this nature that I've read that I came away from really genuinely feeling like I had options available to me that weren't there when I started reading it. So you should be able to find this for pretty cheap. It's been 3 years. Like I said, I got this for $2. I'm sure this is available on Amazon for 7 or 8. If you get it merchant fulfilled, I have not checked. But time and money well spent. And this is a self-help book for people who hate self-help, such as myself. And I've probably held this book up and put it down 20 times over the course of this video. But find it, read it, tell me what you think. Thanks for watching.